lasting longer than we thought we would. It's Thursday, and it is a plant-based business hour, awesome vegans mashup. Yes, that's right. I have a business show and a celebrity influencer show today because I have the world-renowned, incredibly prolific violinist Rachel Barton Pine with me on the show. I'm not even going to spend my time with an introduction to awesome vegans and the plant-based business hour like I usually do. I want to get right to the joy of it. I'm going to bring in this artist, Rachel Barton Pine. You're going to see her at her home with her instruments right here. Rachel, thank you for joining me.
Great to be back.
Yes, I was saying today that I've interviewed you more than any other performer, artist, business person ever. Actually, we've had several interviews together, which has been so fun. So as I was saying, you are incredibly prolific. I have over 40 CDs that you've produced. You have international accolades. You have performed around the world. You are a diehard supporter of female musicians, and you have a profound sense of duty to give back to the music community. I'm so grateful for all of that. But more than anything, we'd love to hear you perform. So if you don't mind, I will let you take it away. What are you going to be performing?
Well, since we all are just stuck in our homes, I think all musicians have been really looking into music that can be played just on one single instrument. And one of the best composers for violin all by itself is Bach, some of the most beloved music that I've lived with for almost my entire life. And this is his F major Largo.
Wonderful. Rachel Barton Pine, that's just so incredible and so moving. Thank you for bringing us some joy during these COVID times. I'm so appreciative. Let me ask you, you have been playing the violin since 3 years old. I don't know any other artist that has been so dedicated since such a young age, and who knew then that at 3 years old that that's all they wanted to do. How is it now as an international performer? How can you survive, and what are you feeling when you can't perform and it's all you've ever known?
Well, it was totally surreal because one moment I was, going to a different city or country every week. In fact, I was in the middle of a 15-day tour, started in Florida, went to North Carolina, then I was in Flagstaff. All of a sudden, all my concerts canceled in one fell swoop. We were supposed to go to Albuquerque after Flagstaff, and we just ended up coming home 2 days early instead, and I've been home ever since.
And you who travels the world, this is probably the longest stint you've ever been at home.
Well, yeah, now that I think about it, because so when I was pregnant, you're not allowed to fly for 1 month before giving birth. So I was kind of grounded. And then people thought it was really extreme that I hit the road again 3 weeks after my daughter was born. But I was like, wait a sec, I've been home already for 4 weeks before that. Like, I'm never home that long. I need to get back out there. And then they were all like, well, wouldn't it be easier to be home, with a new baby? And I'm like, no way. In a hotel, they bring you your room service. They change your sheets. Like, I live in hotels. Living at home is what's weird. But, so this living at home thing now with my daughter, we've used as an opportunity to, do things that we don't get to do in hotels.
Yes. And we're going to talk about your daughter and how you've raised her vegan and how long you've been vegan. But, we can just see by your performance here and also the schedule that you keep. And then, obviously you just performed for us for 3 minutes or so, but you can give concerts that can be over an hour long. It requires incredible stamina, almost the stamina of an athlete, I would say. Is that why you went vegan, for stamina reasons? Or tell me your story.
Yeah, so basically, in a nutshell, no pun intended, my parents, were in college in the 70s when experimentations with alternative things were the norm, and they decided to become vegetarian. Not so much for reasons of environment or animals, but for human health. Excuse me, for one sec, the computer is giving me the wrong view, and it's maybe you could click on something for me. This is such a new world, all of
It
this.
is. And we've
This
had lots of
breathing
technical
stuff.
glitches in our day.
Um,
So our audience is
but
going
you
to
can
roll
still
with
see
it.
me and you can still hear me, yes?
I can, everybody. I can see you. You guys
Okay.
can. Yep.
I can no longer see you, but I can hear you, so I guess all is well. And I'll
Okay.
just deal.
Yes.
Okay, so my
Thank
parents
you.
decided to be vegetarian. So there you can be unhealthy vegan or those things, but it was for them. It was all about health. So it was all about fresh vegetables, whole grains. During the
Yes.
era where you had to go to these really specialized co-ops to even find a whole grain, and so they raised us that way. But like many vegetarians, they fell into the trap of becoming cheesetarians. Um,
Yes.
and I actually never dealt well with dairy. So I never I ate cheese, drank milk, ate yogurt. I couldn't stand that stuff. If there's a little butter in something, I didn't fuss, and I did eat eggs, but it was really weird, especially after I was an adult and didn't live in my mom's house anymore. I literally ate vegan at home, not by design, but just because I would rather put olive oil in something. I
Mm.
would rather eat other things than eggs. I didn't really think about it. And then, on the road, of course, sometimes just for convenience, I would get an omelet. But then I stopped doing that when I discovered that they used this ingredient like egg mix in the back of these hotels. And I was like, wait, I don't even know if they're using eggs to make my eggs. So forget that. And so I was like almost vegan, but it was awkward because I'd be like, well, I'm vegetarian, but I don't eat this and this and this and this and this. And then after my daughter was born, since I myself was never a convert, I didn't actually know how I felt about it. Like,
Oh.
I don't mind what other people eat. I mean, from an intellectual perspective, of course, it would be so great for the planet and for suffering if we all ate nothing but plants. But, if I'm sitting at a table, I'm not grossed out by something somebody else has on their plate because I've just never been that way. And, I never thought about it. that deeply, to be honest. I never would consider doing it myself because to me personally, it would feel gross. But
Mhm.
anyways, so my daughter was born and I had to decide, well, do I care if her other set of grandparents gives her, organic
Oh.
chicken raised with love and slaughtered humanely, whatever that means. And I actually didn't know what I thought about that. So I started reading up, and, some books like The China Study and some of those, popular titles were very, very influential, where I realized that a plant-based diet is in fact the gold standard. And it was like so easy for me to say, okay, I'm going to be officially vegan. And ironically, it was actually easier to be officially vegan than to be like not quite vegan or vegetarian with
Straddled in both ways.
10 asterisks. So yeah, and then and then by sheer lucky coincidence, our first long-term nanny was a recently converted vegan who had done it for reasons of animals. And she was a lifestyle vegan, or is a lifestyle vegan as well, which I don't quite have the discipline to go as far as she does. But she doesn't wear wool or silk or leather or sleep under a down comforter. I really admire that level of commitment. So then, yeah, it was so easy to raise my daughter that way, because you just give her beans and nuts and veggies and fruit.
And so healthy for her.
But yummy.
And yummy, right? And then when someone grows up that way, just so like you did, and now Sylvia's doing, so she's growing up, and this is what she eats, and this is what tastes good to her. So it's going to be an easy pattern for her whole life. I love your story that you say it's actually motherhood that turned you on to being vegan, when you decided to actually look into it more than just follow what you had grown up with, which was already, give or take, a very healthy diet. So I just assumed that it was going to be like many athletes who say, okay, I'm going to change my diet to really be in my tip-top shape. But for you, it wasn't really diet so much as motherhood that put the final nail in the coffin. I know all about the horrific bonds that are broken for dairy to survive between mother and baby. But maybe you could share with.
Oh my gosh.
Awful.
Yes, when I was literally nursing my baby, reading about the mother cows who sob when their babies are taken from them, and then we continue to take their milk. I was like, how can anybody even be vegetarian? Like, that's so illogical. Like, either eat animal products or don't eat animal products, but this halfway in the middle actually isn't. I'm not being judgmental of anybody, by the way. And there's so many people that I love and respect who do eat dairy and maybe haven't thought about it like that, or don't want to think about it, or maybe they have other allergies and their food options are limited. There's all kinds of reasons why people do what they do, or they were raised a certain way, and it's so hard to break habits. And that was my other motivation with my daughter, is that, I do have lots of friends who say, I want to eat more of a plant-based diet, but I love bacon so much and I can't bear to give it up. And,
well, that's changing. Plant-based bacon is on the way. I'm here to tell you, 2020
well,
is the
I
year of
actually
plant-based
can't
bacon.
stand that stuff. I couldn't believe it. I'm a big heavy metal fan. I went to an Iron Maiden concert, and, heavy metal fans can be a cliche, right? There's a certain way you dress. Yes. There's a certain way that many of them eat, not all. Actually, the drummer of my old metal band was a vegetarian because he loved animals, which I thought was awesome. But anyways, I did not expect to see Beyond Burgers not only offered, but so popular at the Iron Maiden concert. That was a real big, I was like, wow, the world is truly changing. But I myself don't want to eat a Beyond Burger, because I'm like, I want my soy to just be soy. I don't want it to be processed, because I'm all about like unprocessed stuff, no chemicals, no artificial flavors, no artificial colors. And that's the other thing about the way I'm raising my daughter. People will, and I feel so bad, people will go out of their way to procure for her a vegan cookie. And I'm like, oh no, well, it still has lots of sugar, and it still has refined grains, and it still has artificial coloring. And luckily I don't have to say a word, because my daughter will say, thank you very much, but do you have any fruit?
Oh my gosh. What a great kid. Oh my gosh. Well, I love that you say that, because it's so true. From the Iron Maiden concert to Wrigley Field in Chicago, I mean, you're just seeing all these options pop up in stereotypically places that you wouldn't expect them to pop up. But the funny thing is that I get this question all the time, just like you. People say, well, do you live on Beyond Meat Burgers? And I say, well, no, it's not me. I'm not the meat eater. So they didn't make that product.
Oh, yeah,
for
me especially. because I've never eaten a bite of meat in my life. I don't need
Wow.
something to replace something I've never had.
Right.
So I just
Exactly
want some
right.
tofu, you know.
And because you've been vegan, well, vegetarian at least your whole life and vegan now for a while, you probably don't even realize how bad you probably don't even because I like remember how bad I used to feel eating meat and dairy, that it slowed me down, that it would sit in my stomach for a long time. And I never knew how great I could feel until I didn't have that stuff in my system anymore. But you probably, if you had meat today, I don't think you could probably perform.
Yeah.
It would
It's
set you back.
a little scary to think how freaked out I would be. I mean, my system, how freaked out my system would be.
Yes, I
Um,
think that's right. I think that's right.
but
But
I think I would be equally freaked out if I ate sugary. I mean, you can eat a vegan diet without ever touching a vegetable, and
yeah.
that's what's been really surprising is to meet friends who are, eating vegan for the planet and for animals and eating completely unhealthy. And now there's more and more products, so it's easier and easier to be an unhealthy vegan. I was shocked the first time I saw an unhealthy quinoa product. I was like, oh, I guess things are really catching on. Like, but this isn't totally good. Um, and I didn't know there were vegan lollipops and vegan marshmallows and all kinds of chemicals that had, just because it has nothing to do with an animal doesn't mean you should necessarily be eating these processed chemicals. So
Yes, you really want to keep it to for your own health, the whole food, plant-based diet. So that's the whole grains and as much
exactly.
veggies as you can get in and all those great legumes and beans and fruit, of course. You just want to get as much of that stuff as you can. And
And that
then
might be why I didn't like dairy as a child, because I started playing the violin so early and performing so young and doing, hours and hours a day of this very high level physical activity that needs so much precision and stamina. And, that stuff didn't make me feel good.
I
So,
can see that where dairy would actually because I've never had a problem with dairy, although mentally I do now, which is why I'm vegan because I learned about the fundamental breaking of the bond between mother and baby for dairy to exist, and it's just something I couldn't get behind. But a lot of people do really suffer from lactose intolerance, and that can be anything from small stomach aches to asthma. I mean, a lot of people have really difficult problems with dairy. So if you had those problems, I do think it would be tricky to perform feeling that way.
it was so interesting during my breastfeeding years to see
Oh,
how you have to be careful about where you're going to breastfeed and how you're going to breastfeed. And here's everybody drinking their breast milk
milk.
from bovines, and I'm like, wait, this is so messed up.
Well, so how does when and maybe Sylvia's around, who knows? But how does Sylvia feel about being vegan? Is there any resistance at
Oh well,
school? That kind of
is
stuff.
Well, she travels with me. So she's been on tour since she was 3 weeks old and has never stopped traveling with me. So actually, she's not only a second generation vegan, essentially, but she's also a second generation homeschooler.
Oh,
My
wow.
mom started homeschooling me at the suggestion of my private school principal in third grade to accommodate my practicing schedule and performance schedule and so on. And Sylvia is homeschooling to accommodate my performance schedule, but so that we can keep our family together because my husband travels with me and Sylvia travels with us. And yeah, so instead of just reading about the Tower of London or, the zoo in Singapore, she can just go there and check it out. And I mean, it's an incredible lifestyle. But the one thing we have to, be careful of, obviously, is making sure that we retain stability of a consistent social life for her so she's been FaceTiming her friends since long before the lockdown, because she would always be in a hotel room catching up with the friends across her iPad, and of course bringing her out to classes which are now on Zoom during our few days at home each week. But yeah,
And
it's been great and actually the sad thing about all the concerts being canceled is that my daughter, she's given lots of concerts over the years so far. She's 8 now, but she was about to do her very first solos with orchestra, where she would get up in front of the whole symphony
oh,
and play the solo part. There was supposed to be one in March, one in April, one in May. There's one coming up in June that I'm sure won't happen. So that was very, very sad. I mean, it'll still happen, and
yes.
we have so much to be grateful for.
But it
Um,
is hard for those artists who have really planned, large scale performances, large scale productions, and to have it all just stopped. And I'm sure for her, she's probably really disappointed. But her friends don't. I don't know, give her any teasing about being vegan, or they're sort of interested maybe because all kids love animals. So,
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, we coach her in many different areas of, effective social dynamics, how to make small talk at a post-concert reception, how to talk to the person next to you on the airplane, all those kind of situations that you might find yourself in and need to, be polite and effective. And one of the things we've, of course, coached her on is, not to get preachy about certain lifestyle things that she might believe in that others might not. And, because that just doesn't work well. But you can lead by example. And it's interesting because my youngest sister was always very awkward growing up about not wanting to be different and not wanting people to know that she didn't eat what the other kids ate and being a little embarrassed and so on. And my daughter has a certain type of inborn self-confidence, and maybe it comes from also having the vegan nanny at the outset, but she has just a real security in who she is and what she believes in, and she's definitely not shy in being very outspoken about who she is and what she does. And so it's really a strong part of her identity is being vegan, but I think it also flows from she has just a love of animals that, I mean, I've always loved animals, but Sylvia's like the type that for walking down the street, she'll say, "Mom, don't step on that ant." And
I love
before
her.
she came into my life, I wouldn't be one of those kids who would go and step on an ant on purpose, but if I did accidentally step on an ant, I wouldn't really feel that I had caused a life to end. I just accidentally stepped on an ant. Oh, I hope my shoe isn't squishy. You know what I mean? But after Sylvia, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a creature crawling along there. I shouldn't step on that ant. And she's really opened my eyes. I think that's the beauty of parenthood is you learn so much from having this other person in your life who's born with this personality that you're discovering and learning from.
Yes, kids are wonderful for that. They take everything that you just assume to be the way it should be because you've been doing it for 3 or 4 decades, and they turn that on its head. And I love that about them, that they just live unabashedly in that way. Speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I think if she had not been raised vegan, she would have been one of those kids that you see videos of where one day they say, "I'm not going to eat any animals," and then the parents are like, "Oh my God, what do I feed them?"
I love those kids. I know many of them.
But I feel so sad for the parents and hope they figure it out because, like for my daughter, I think it was just like a wonderful coincidence that how I had chosen to raise her happened to be who she was already.
Well, and one of the reasons I wanted to book you again, because I'd said in the beginning that I think I've interviewed you more than anyone. I wanted to book you again for an interview because you reached out to me on Facebook and you said, my daughter Sylvia, she's wondering why people aren't talking about the connection between eating meat and our worldwide pandemic. And she said, I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing here. She said something like, "Can't everyone see? It's obvious." So it's very interesting that she's so tuned in.
Yeah, well, I was showing her one of these little kid videos of, how to explain things to your little kid, right? And they talked about the bat and they talked about the pangolin, and she was like, "Well, Mom, this would never have happened." And I was like, that's true. And then I actually was reading an article that talked about so many of the different outbreaks and different things that have come around in the world.
The meat-borne pandemic.
Obviously not the bubonic plague. That was just rats and fleas and things but there have been certainly a number of things that, if one doesn't want to blame eating animals in its entirety, certainly the way that we approach that symbiosis has a lot of room for improvement.
Absolutely. Mad cow disease, Ebola, SARS, MERS, these are all things that come from eating animals and having animals in such close confinement that there's really no way to avoid transference of disease, which ultimately is zoonotic and comes to us. So it's partly the eating of the animals and it's partly the condition that we keep the animals in. So it is interesting that we're living in a time where people are hopefully more and more. It's one of the things that I do in the plant-based business hour is I really try to bring out that, if we weren't eating meat, we wouldn't be in this situation. So let's look at all the businesses that are out there to give us a safer food supply so that we have a safer future, more secure future, and that would be plant-based foods. So I
Well, now
think people,
then the latest news is, in addition to all of the other, horrible and hazardous conditions of working in a meat packing plant, those
yes,
are now becoming incubators for COVID, and
that's
scores
right.
and scores of the employees are coming down with the disease, which is absolutely tragic. But now they're
Awful.
saying that the supply of meat for the nation might be compromised. And, you know, actually, I wonder if people are going to realize that they can eat more beans. And
Yes,
maybe when this all ends, they'll realize maybe I felt better and want to keep
right.
eating more beans and
And that I
less of that
didn't
other
need
stuff.
that other stuff
So,
that was
we shall.
making me sick. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting, 6 weeks from now, what people are wanting to eat, what they're craving, what they're thinking, the connection that people are making between their own health and the health of the planet and these diseases that are, let's face it, we're all locked at home. You can't perform. Everyone's out of a job. I mean, this is going to have ramifications for time to come. It's not just the time that we're locked indoors. I mean, who knows when you'll actually perform again? Because, while we might go outside, the idea of sitting in a crowded performance theater is probably going to be one of the last things that people are willing to do. So, it
Yeah. Well,
affects us financially for a
we
long
never used to.
time.
We never used to think of, carefully handpicking those with whom we choose to breathe the same air.
Yes, exactly
And
right.
now it's making, intimate relationships that much more valued, I think, and friendships
Yes.
and just how we connect with others and what it means. And there's so much that good, I think, that we can take from something bad in the end.
Yes, I like that perspective. And I do agree. I do think that we are on a turning of the Titanic for the better, and that this is going to open us into a safer and more secure food supply, which is ultimately going to make us feel healthier and then reestablish our relationship with the earth and its inhabitants. So we're getting a little bit into my next question. But before we bring on Sylvia, because I can't wait to hear her take on the world as well. But we're talking about it a little bit, but what are your predictions for the future? Where do you see us going in, let's say, the next 5 years?
Oh, goodness. I've never been a particularly effective person at answering questions like that. But I can talk about the performing arts front, which is that I think people will, not only when it's safe to do so, go back to live events. But I think people will appreciate it on a deeper level. And, instead of maybe taking it for granted, oh, yeah, I can catch a symphony concert if I have nothing better to do that night. They might realize, wait a sec, I've been watching a bunch of YouTube videos, but it's not the same as being
Right.
in the same space with others who are experiencing the same thing simultaneously. A room full of strangers and that collective vibe,
Yes.
feeling the musicians coming at you in that room, hearing the acoustics of a live space rather than just your little computer speakers. I mean, it's such a profoundly different emotional experience. I think it's wonderful how, all of my colleagues and I are doing everything we can to continue sharing music, and, and it does get you very far, but it doesn't get you all the way. And I think we're going to experience that. On the other hand, I think that we're also, getting used to new technologies. It used to be that, if my daughter and I were out of town for a week, then I would say, oh, I guess we'll miss your lesson that week. I imagine that in the future, all these music teachers now know how to use Zoom and Google Meet and Skype and all that stuff. And instead it'll be like, oh, I guess this week's lesson will be on Zoom from the hotel room. Why not? Better than missing a lesson entirely. So that would never have happened before this. In terms of performance, I think we're going to start to see maybe live concerts. In fact, my husband started a new business called ourconcerts.live, which had its first concert that I participated in last week, which was a fundraiser for an organization that's helping those who are struggling in specifically the classical music world with their basic necessities. A wonderful charity called Artist Tree. Is it Artist Tree or The Artist Tree? I think it's Artist Tree. Or no, excuse me, Artist Relief Tree, ART, Artist Relief Tree. That's what it is. And anyways, the fact that this technology now exists, I could see us having a live concert with a live audience, but also streaming it to those who are maybe homebound for whatever reason. Maybe they're elderly, maybe they're ill, maybe they're in parts of the world that don't have that great orchestra. So
The
people
Met
can,
has done this a little
oh,
bit.
yes, exactly. And that was, the anomaly. But now it might start to be the norm, not as a replacement, but as an enhancement to what we do. I would be sad if, the streaming stuff started to compete with or, take away from the live stuff. But somehow I don't think that's going to happen. Just like with socialization, I think, it's wonderful that we can keep in touch with FaceTime, but I think we're going to realize how special it is to be able to give each other a hug.
Yes. And I hope that comes back, because I've been talking to doctors who say that they think that might not come back, that people really getting close, you're going to have your 5-6 people you do that with, and everybody else is a wave from afar. So I hope that that's not the case, but
I just can't imagine. That's not how we were hardwired. That's not who we are as a species. That just can't be.
It's all remains to be seen. Let me ask you, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, well, I've come up with so many tricks for eating on the road. I actually am very tempted to start a little video blog. It'd be a great time to start it now because nobody's traveling, but once people are traveling again, because my skills at being able to eat healthy in a hotel room with nothing but a mini fridge, a microwave, and a bathroom sink have become ever more refined. And I've Googled, vegan travel blogs, and you either have leisure travelers who are talking about finding restaurants on Happy Cow and all of that normal stuff, or you have, kind of road trippy kind of things that are talking about which of the unhealthy junk food in the gas station kiosk is vegan. But you don't have people who want to eat healthy, who are maybe, just people with busy schedules who don't have time to go to a restaurant when they're on the road because they've got the next meeting, the next rehearsal. So not only performers, but business travelers as well, I think could really learn some of the things that I now know that I didn't know 10 years ago about exactly which brands of what and how to do it with the microwave steam bags and which herbs to pack and how to do the whole thing.
I would love that. I would follow that blog because I think, I'm really good at reading labels. And so I've got my basics of, nuts and dried fruit and fresh fruit, of course, and lots of rice. And you can make that almost anywhere in the world. And, but I think there are lots of tricks to be had there. So I would watch that for sure. So I'm wondering if you ever have a bad day, which, you seem like a very, positive person, which I know you are. You probably have to be to perform around the world and keep that energy up. And performing is this constant giving out. And of course, when performers are live, they get back to that energy from the audience, but you're constantly giving out. But in the event that you do have a bad day, is there anything that you tell yourself to get yourself back in the mood? Any kind of phrase that you live by?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I mean, I am a person of faith, and it's been particularly meaningful to be able to connect with my faith family, with my church, with the different things that are going on over there on Zoom and Facebook streaming.
Right.
And,
sure.
And even just to be able to pray with my daughter. And definitely as a musician, I feel super lucky that I have another musician in the house, because being able to make music with somebody is just such a luxury that not everybody has. And so, I think just, being able to phone a friend, being able to have that person you can talk to when you're not quite feeling your best is, even more important perhaps than something you can tell yourself, because sometimes that human connection is not even about what's said. It's just about connecting. And sometimes when you're in that dark place, you don't feel like connecting, but if you can just bring yourself to do so, it's definitely going to turn things around.
I love that. Well, you do have the luxury of living with another performer, and I believe that she is quite close. Do
Sylvia?
We have Sylvia in the house, literally?
Yep. Yeah, and we've been actually doing some very fun vegan projects that we'd love to tell you about.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. Hey, Sylvia, I met you about a year ago.
Hold on one sec. We need to get her so that she can hear you. I don't know. We're grabbing the other earpiece. But
if you have 2 earpieces, maybe give her one.
Exactly. That's what my husband is doing right now. And actually, speaking of my husband, his father's mother's extended family, if you can follow that. So I don't even know how many times removed cousins. They are Jewish, and they actually have Seder every year. And Sylvia and I were able to join on Zoom, and we made, for the first time ever, vegan matzo ball soup,
And
which worked out super well.
Isn't matzo ball already vegan? I know nothing about it.
Well, no, it has chicken broth and it has egg. So the balls have egg and the broth has chicken broth, and without the egg, then it's all going to fall apart. But somehow this fancy quinoa flakes and whatever, like it worked great. And
Listen to that.
And it was delicious.
Listen to the expert there, quinoa. She's got it down. Sylvia, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. It's nice to be here.
You have to talk a little louder.
It's nice to be here with my mom.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what's it like living at home? You can't go out, you can't see your friends, but you're with your favorite musician.
Well, I don't usually get to see my friends anyway, but I have a lot of new ones. So it always happens when we travel. It's a little bit different being at home, a little bit confusing because our usual schedule is not having a schedule.
Well, she's gotten to read a lot of her books, her big fat books that we can't pack in the suitcase instead of just the Kindle. And we got to grow things that normally between planting and harvesting, the time doesn't work out. So what have we been growing?
We've been growing microgreens, which was really, really fun.
What greens?
I think
microgreens.
Oh, microgreens.
Like little tiny broccoli sprouts that you can pick, and cabbage and stuff like that. They aren't actually like broccoli things, but they're little like sprouts, which is really cool. They
hamama, I think, or hamana. That's the one we've been using.
And
we've been growing mushrooms, which is so cool.
So great. Yeah. Mushrooms are the answer to everything.
Yes, mushrooms forever.
And of course, we're about to grow some herbs, and we've been growing, we've been doing sprouts, which is really yummy.
Sylvia, what is some of your favorite dishes? What do you love to eat?
Well, I love to eat cantaloupe, fruit like that. And the problem is, a lot of times people ask me that, and it's very hard for me to decide.
Falafel.
Yes, falafel and dill rice.
I love falafel too.
I like salads.
Beans and rice and tomato sauce.
Yes, that is like one of my top favorites.
And Sylvia, if any of your friends, your young friends, ask you like, "Oh, hey, why are you vegan and why do you like it?" What do you say?
The only time I really not gotten that question was in a camp where I was by myself, Vermont camp, and I just said so that I don't hurt the animals, and so I can help the animals because I really love lots of different kinds of animals and I don't want to hurt them. But usually I get that question from grown-ups more.
Yes, I would think so.
Same thing.
Same thing. I thank you for caring about animals and for making such a difference, Sylvia. I really do appreciate it. And for spreading the word and being such a wonderful example, because you really are just a wonderful example. Well, I know
Speaking of plants, I have to tell you that it's, when my sister and I were little, we did a science experiment where we had 3 batches of coleus plants. One of them was in a room of the apartment where it was pretty quiet, but lots of sunlight, good food. One of them was in a room where we played loud rock and roll music to them out of a boombox. And one of them was in our practice room. And unfortunately, we didn't control for decibels. We controlled for sunlight and food to be consistent. So it might have been the volume, I'm not sure. But the rock and roll ones didn't flourish. The silent room ones were kind of textbook. They grew exactly how much that plant would normally grow. And the violin music ones grew tons and tons of extra leaves and extra height and extra fast. And that's exactly what's been happening with our mushroom kit. We were following along and it said by day this, it should do that. And by day this. And
day 7, you'd only get small results like this. And by day 2, our mushrooms were like this.
Wow.
And we put them in the practice room, needless to say.
So classical music helps things grow, basically.
Totally.
I love it.
And I also have a plant that isn't food over there. We named it Diana, and she's growing lots of new little leaves. And I didn't know that plants could grow leaves that fast.
Wow,
Yep.
how fun. All the things you learned during COVID-19. I love it. Well, I know that you two practice together so much, and I wonder if you would play something for the two of us. For the two of you would play something for us.
For all of you who are watching this.
For all of you, yes, because there are. And in fact, while you guys get ready, I'll say shout out to Tom Vincel and Joey Tooker and Nancy Alfano, Michelle Alfano. There are a bunch of people here. I want to make sure I get everybody in here. Their other names, Stephanie Lund. I appreciate it. So shout out to everybody who's watching from different parts of the country. Anna Yoga, I see there. So our author, Claude the Source, he's so great. So Stephanie Lund, yeah. Okay, so everybody, thank you for watching. And you guys, what are you going to play for us?
Well, we're here in Chicago, so I thought we'd play something bluesy for you.
Ooh.
This is Carroll County Blues. I didn't have much association with my fiddle teacher after he moved away, but now FaceTime, Zoom, everything. This is like the new world of technology in this area. So now we can FaceTime with my American fiddle teacher, who actually arranged this piece. This is called Carroll County Blues. It's by Benton Flippin, but it was arranged by my teacher, my American fiddle teacher, Matt Brown.
Wonderful.
And I learned a brand new skill after all these years of playing the violin. I never thought I would have to pretend to be a guitar, but since we can't have a guitarist come over, I have learned how to strum on my fiddle.
Wow. So
Yeah,
we're going
this is my debut doing that, actually.
I was going to say it's a Rachel Burton Pine first right here on the Awesome Vegans Influencer Series. I'm going to duck out and then you won't see me or hear me, but you guys, whenever you are ready, you are still live. So go right ahead. We can't wait.
You have to call us in.
1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3.
Oh my gosh, nothing but pure joy. That's the best thing that has happened to me since COVID-19. I am over the moon. Thank you both so much for bringing that energy and joy. You know, Sylvia, you are, it's silly to say because obviously you travel the world and you play the world and obviously the whole world knows that you are very talented, but beyond what I would ever thought of someone younger than 30. I mean, I can't believe that someone your age is playing the way you play. I'm speechless. It's really wonderful.
Thanks.
Well, I'm really proud of what a hard worker she is. She actually in November celebrated her 1,000th day of practicing in a row without ever missing a day, and she's still going. I think today is 1,143.
Oh my gosh, Sylvia, you are an inspiration. And of course, Rachel, you are too. You've done so much for the music world and people in general. But, you know, Sylvia is our future. She is where we are going. And so thank you for music and joy and for caring about animals and being such a wonderful example to all of your friends, both of you in any decade, the young and the older and the middle, all of it. It's just wonderful. I'm so grateful that you're here. Everyone, please go ahead and plug what CD we should buy right now from you?
Oh, gosh. Well, my latest album is Dvorak and Khachaturian violin concertos. But for those that are really looking for, there's something Yo-Yo Ma started, #Songs of Comfort. And there's nothing more comforting than my Violin Lullabies album that I actually made for Sylvia after she was born. So I think that's a really nice one if you're feeling anxiety and just want to be able to kind of calm your spirit.
It has a picture of me and
yes, there's a picture of a baby Sylvia on the cover.
There's a secret one too under the CD.
That's right.
Oh, I love it. So everybody, you have your marching orders. Go to rachelbartonpine.com or probably Amazon as well. And you can buy Lullabies by Rachel Barton Pine with a very sweet picture of Sylvia on it. Sylvia, I want to hear more from you. I cannot wait to buy tickets and see you perform in person one day.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Sylvia has a sylviapine.com website and also a YouTube channel, Sylvia Pine Music.
Okay, everybody, go to Sylvia Pine Music and sylviapine.com and, of course, rachelbartonpine.com. I'm sending huge love and hugs out to both of you. Thank you for all you do. What an enormous joy. Everybody, I will be right back here tomorrow, 1 p.m., live on Jane Unchained. This has been another awesome Vegans Influencer series. Tomorrow, I'm back with the Plant-Based Business Hour. Until then, together, we are taking back our health and the health of the planet. Thanks for being with me, everybody.
Thanks
Bye,
for having
Rachel.
us on.
Bye, Sylvia. Bye.